Ladies and gentlemen, let me make this really simple. Words matter. They reveal more than most people realize. And sometimes the things a man says to you aren't just careless comments, they're red flags. Big ones. The kind that tell you who he really is and what life with him will look like. Today, I'm going to give you 5 specific phrases. If you hear them, don't argue. Don't explain. Just walk away. When a man looks at you and says, "You're too sensitive," I want you to really hear what's happening in that moment, because what he's not doing is listening. What he's not doing is honoring your feelings. What he's not doing is showing you respect. Instead, he's taking the very thing you're opening up about your emotions, your vulnerability, and flipping it back on you like it's a problem. That's not love. That's not care. That's dismissal. Now, let me be clear. Sensitivity isn't a weakness. Sensitivity means you feel, it means you notice. It means you care enough to let someone in. That's strength. But when he says you're too sensitive, what he's really saying is, I don't want to deal with what you're bringing up, so I'm going to shut it down before it ever gets off the ground. And that's dangerous because it teaches you over time that your feelings aren't safe to share, that your emotions are somehow wrong. And when you start believing that, you start silencing yourself. Think about it. Relationships are built on communication. If every time you try to communicate, you're told you're too much, eventually you stop talking. And when you stop talking, you disconnect. And when you disconnect, the relationship isn't really a partnership anymore. It's just you trying not to upset someone who refuses to meet you halfway. That's not sustainable. Now, let me ask you, why would someone say that? Why would someone call you too sensitive? Because it's easier than accountability. It's easier than saying, you know what, you're right. I could have handled that better. Or I see how that hurts you and I'll work on it. Accountability is hard, but blame shifting, that's quick. And calling you too sensitive is just a quick way to dodge responsibility. And here's the truth. People who love you don't want to silence your feelings. They want to understand them. They may not always agree. They may not always like hearing it, but they don't label you as the problem just for expressing yourself. That label, too sensitive. It's meant to shut the door on the conversation to make you question your own reality. And if you're not careful, you'll start thinking, maybe I am overreacting. Maybe it is me. That's not clarity. That's manipulation. And you see, language matters because if someone keeps telling you you're too sensitive, after a while, you don't just doubt your feelings, you doubt your worth. You start adjusting yourself to fit into their comfort zone. And in doing that, you shrink. You lose pieces of who you are just to keep the peace. And no relationship is worth you losing yourself. Here's the difference. The right man will want to know why something bothers you. He'll lean in, not push away. He'll say, tell me more. Help me understand. He won't shame you for feeling. He won't make you feel small. He'll stand in it with you even when it's messy, because real connection requires empathy. And empathy doesn't sound like you're too sensitive. Empathy sounds like, I didn't realize that hurt you. I'll do better. So the next time you hear that phrase, you're too sensitive, I want you to pause, not to second guess yourself, but to recognize what's really happening. That's not a reflection of you. That's a reflection of him. And it's telling you loud and clear, this is someone who doesn't value your voice. And if he doesn't value your voice now, he's not going to value it later. Don't try to explain it away. Don't try to convince him otherwise. You don't have to debate your own emotions because your emotions are valid. Your sensitivity is strength. And a man who can't see that isn't a man you should stay with. So if he tells you you're too sensitive, walk away. When a man says to you, you'll never find anyone better than me, I want you to stop right there and hear the weight behind those words, because that isn't confident speaking. That isn't love speaking. That's control. That's fear wrapped in arrogance. And it's meant to trap you in a place where you start to believe your options are limited, when the truth is they're not. Think about what's really being said in that moment. He's not celebrating your connection. He's not grateful for the relationship. He's putting himself on a pedestal and daring you to believe you could ever do better. That's not a partner. That's a salesman. And what's he selling? He's selling you the idea that he's the best you'll ever have, so you'd better stay put. And that is manipulation, plain and simple. Now here's the problem with manipulation like this. It doesn't always sound like manipulation at first. Sometimes it sounds like teasing. Sometimes it sounds like confidence. But if you listen closely, you'll realize it's not said to lift you up. It's said to keep you down. Because the message is clear. Without me, you're nothing. And once you start believing that he's got the control, real confidence doesn't need to compare. Real love doesn't need to trap. A healthy man doesn't have to remind you he's the best thing that ever happened to you. He shows it by how he treats you. He proves it with consistency, with patience, with kindness. That's what speaks louder than words. But when he has to declare, you'll never find anyone better, that's insecurity trying to disguise itself as strength. Let me be real with you. If someone truly thinks they're the best you'll ever find, they don't feel the need to improve. They don't feel the need to grow. They don't feel the need to check themselves. Because in their mind, you're already lucky to have them. And that sets the stage for complacency. That's how relationships die. When one person stops showing up and hides behind pride instead of progress. And here's where it gets even trickier. That phrase can make you start second-guessing yourself. You might begin to wonder, what if he's right? What if I don't find anyone better? And once the thought creeps in, it starts shaping your choices. You tolerate more than you should. You stay longer than you should. You accept things you don't deserve. All because someone convinced you that your worth begins and ends with them. But let me tell you this. If a man has to convince you he's the best you'll ever find, he's already showing you he's not. The truth is there are billions of people in this world, and the right one isn't going to threaten you into staying. The right one isn't going to measure your options for you. The right one is going to be grateful that you choose him every day, not try to scare you into thinking you don't have a choice. That's the difference between love and control. Because love doesn't sound like you'll never find anyone better. Love sounds like I'm thankful you chose me. Love sounds like I want to be better for you. Love sounds like I see your worth and I don't take it for granted. And if a man can't say those things, if instead he makes you feel small just to make himself look big, you're not looking at a partner. You're looking at a prison. You deserve someone who lifts your confidence, not someone who locks it in a box. You deserve someone who reminds you of your value without needing to compare it to anyone else. And you deserve someone who never tries to convince you that he's the ceiling of your worth. Because the truth is, your worth has no ceiling. So when you hear the words, "You'll never find anyone better than me," don't argue. Don't try to prove otherwise. Just recognize the control hiding in that sentence. Recognize the insecurity that's fueling it. And recognize that it's not your job to fix it, excuse it, or accept it. If he tells you you'll never find anyone better than him, walk away. When a man looks you in the eye and says, "I'm only like this because of you," I want you to stop and realize what just happened. He didn't take responsibility for his actions. He didn't own his choices. He put the weight of his behavior on your shoulders. That's not accountability. That's blame. And blame is poison in a relationship. Think about it. Everyone has moments when they're upset, when they raise their voice, when they don't handle things the right way. That's human. But maturity means being able to say, "I shouldn't have done that," or "that was on me," because accountability builds trust. It says, you can rely on me to be honest about where I fall short. But when he says, "I'm only like this because of you," what he's really saying is, "I'm not going to change. I'm going to make you carry the blame instead." And that's a red flag you can't ignore. Here's the trap. Over time, those words can make you question yourself. You start replaying situations in your head, wondering if you really did, because his anger, his silence, his distance, you begin to tiptoe around him, thinking if you just said it differently or did it differently, maybe he wouldn't act that way. That's not partnership. That's walking on eggshells. And eggshells never make a solid foundation. Blame shifting works like quicksand. The more you fight it, the deeper you sink, because it's designed to distract you from the real issue, his choices. If he lashes out and says, well, I wouldn't have if you hadn't, suddenly the conversation isn't about his outburst anymore. It's about your reaction. And just like that, the spotlight moves off of him and onto you. That's not a conversation, that's a diversion. Now let's call this what it is: emotional manipulation. Because if he can convince you that you're the reason he behaves poorly, then he doesn't have to look in the mirror. He doesn't have to change. And worse, you begin to feel responsible for fixing him. But here's the truth. His behavior is his choice, always. You don't cause someone's anger. You don't cause someone's disrespect. They choose it. And if they blame you for it, that's not love, that's control. Let me paint it another way. Imagine two people arguing. One says, I'm upset because you didn't hear me. That's honest. That's expressing a feeling. But if instead he says, I yelled because of you, he's excusing his reaction by turning you into the reason. Do you see the difference? The first one takes ownership of an emotion. The second one dodges responsibility for a behavior. And those are two very different things. Here's a danger. If you accept that narrative long enough, you begin to internalize it. You start carrying guilt that doesn't belong to you. And that guilt can keep you tied to a man who refuses to grow because you think leaving means abandoning him. But you're not abandoning him. You're stepping away from a cycle that was never yours to fix. A healthy man doesn't tell you he's like this because of you. A healthy man says, I'm sorry, that was on me. He says, I got it wrong. I'll do better. He separates your actions from his reactions because he knows the difference. That's accountability. That's respect. And that's what real partnership sounds like. So when he tells you, I'm only like this because of you, don't argue. Don't start defending yourself, because the moment you go down that road, you've already accepted the blame he handed you. Instead, see it for what it is, a refusal to own up to his choices. And if he refuses accountability now, he won't suddenly start taking it later. If he tells you he's only like this because of you, walk away. When a man says nobody else would put up with you, I want you to hear exactly what's being said. That's not a joke. That's not tough love. That's an attack on your self-worth. Because what he's really telling you is that you should feel lucky just to have him. That no one else would see you as valuable. That you're somehow too much, too flawed, too difficult. And if you believe that you'll stay in a place you were never meant to stay, here's the thing. Words like that don't come from love. Love builds. Love lifts you up when the world tries to tear you down. But when someone tells you that nobody else would put up with you, that's not lifting you. It's shrinking you. It's designed to make you think your options are limited, that you don't deserve better, and that leaving would mean no one else would ever want you. That's not truth. That's control. And control like that doesn't show up all at once. It's usually planted little by little. Maybe it starts as a passing comment, something said in frustration, something you brush off, but then it happens again and again, and before long it becomes the background noise of your relationship. And the more you hear it, the more it starts to sound believable, because repetition is powerful. If someone repeats a lie often enough, it can start to feel like fact, even when deep down you know it isn't. The danger is that once those words sink in, they can shape the way you see yourself. You begin to filter your worth through his voice. Instead of asking, am I being treated well? You start asking, am I really hard to love? Instead of thinking about what you need, you start worrying about how to keep him happy, because you've been told he's the only one who would ever put up with you. That's not love. That's erasing who you are. Let me tell you something important. You are not too much. You are not unlovable. You are not someone that only one person on this planet could ever tolerate. Those are lies spoken by someone who wants to keep you small so they can feel big. Because when someone uses that line, nobody else would put up with you. What they're really saying is, I don't want you to realize you deserve more than this. A healthy man will never make you question whether you're lovable. He won't weaponize your imperfections or use them against you. Because guess what? We all have flaws. We all have quirks. We all have things that make us challenging at times, but in a healthy relationship, those things aren't ammunition. They're just part of being human. And someone who truly loves you doesn't make you feel like a burden because of them. They accept them. They accept you. Here's what's also true. The right person will never make you believe you're lucky just because they tolerate you. The right person will make you feel grateful because they see you, they value you, they cherish you, and you'll feel the same way about them. That's mutual. That's love. Tolerating isn't the bar. Respecting, appreciating, growing together, that's the bar. So when a man throws that line at you, nobody else would put up with you. Don't waste your energy trying to prove him wrong. Don't list all the ways you bring value, because the moment you start defending yourself, you've already accepted that the false frame he set up, and you don't need to. Your worth isn't up for debate. Instead, I want you to recognize it for what it is, a tactic, a way to chip away at your confidence so you don't see your choices clearly. And if someone's goal is to strip away your confidence just to keep you around, that's not someone you need in your life. Because the right partner won't try to make you believe you're hard to love. They'll do the opposite. They'll remind you every day why you're easy to love. So if he tells you nobody else would put up with you, walk away. When a man says, if you really loved me, you would. I want you to pause, because that sentence isn't about love at all. That sentence is about leverage. It's about twisting something pure, your love, into a bargaining chip to get what he wants. And the moment love becomes a condition, it stops being love and starts being control. Think about what's happening in that moment. He's not inviting you into a choice. He's cornering you into a decision. He's framing it so that if you don't do what he wants, your love must not be real. That's not fair. That's not honest. That's manipulation dressed up as intimacy. Love is not a test you have to pass. Love is not a list of hoops you have to jump through. And anyone who tells you otherwise is using love as a tool, not as a gift. Because real love doesn't sound like, if you loved me, you'd prove it. Real love sounds like, I know you love me, and I trust you to choose what's right. Do you feel the difference? One is freedom, the other is a trap. Here's the danger of that phrase. It makes you start questioning yourself instead of questioning him. You think maybe he's right. Maybe if I don't give in, I'm not showing love. And once that thought takes root, it becomes harder and harder to draw boundaries. Because suddenly, every time you try to say no, you feel guilty. You feel like you're failing him. You feel like you're failing the relationship. But love doesn't punish you for saying no. Love respects boundaries, even when it doesn't always agree with them. And that's what makes this phrase so destructive. It makes you believe that sacrifice equals proof. But sacrifice without choice isn't love. It's pressure. And pressure leads to resentment. Because deep down, you know you didn't choose freely. You were cornered into compliance. And when love starts to feel like pressure, it loses its safety. Think about it. If love always comes with strings attached, is it really love, or is it just a transaction? Because what he's really saying with that line is, your love is only valid if it benefits me. That's not partnership. That's a deal with uneven terms. And in a deal like that, you'll always be the one paying more. The right man doesn't demand proof of your love through conditions. He doesn't say, if you loved me, you would change this. Give me that. Forgive this. Ignore that. He doesn't turn your love into leverage. Instead, he appreciates the ways you already show it through your time, your presence, your care, your patience, and he gives that same energy back to you. That's balance. That's healthy. That's real. And let me be clear, there's a big difference between expressing a need and weaponizing love. A man can say, I need more quality time with you, and that's honest communication. But when he says, if you love me, you'd spend more time with me, that's no longer about the need. It's about guilt. And guilt is a terrible motivator for love, because guilt may make you stay, but it will never make you feel safe. So when you hear that phrase, don't argue with it. Don't get pulled into proving your love by bending past your boundaries, because that's exactly what it's designed to do, to push you into defending something that doesn't need defending. Your love is not up for negotiation. It's not a tool. It's not a bargaining chip. It's a gift you choose to give. And if a man can't accept it without conditions, then he's not ready for the kind of love you have to offer. If he tells you, if you really loved me, you would walk away. Let me leave you with this. Words aren't just words. They're windows. They show you how someone really thinks, how they really value you, and how they'll treat you long term. If a man dismisses your feelings, if he tries to convince you he's the best you'll ever have, if he blames you for his behavior, if he attacks your worth, or if he uses your love as leverage, those aren't slip-ups. Those are signals. Signals that this isn't safe, this isn't healthy, and this isn't love. You don't need to argue. You don't need to prove. You don't need to wait for change that isn't coming. You only need to recognize it for what it is and remember what you deserve. So if a man says these things to you, don't explain, don't negotiate, don't stay, walk away.